Okay, so today's video is a little different. I won't be on screen very much because I wanted to show you the creation process of creating a Galaxy Girl with some directions down at the bottom. But I'll actually be talking about writing because this all spawned from trying to figure out how to describe vitiligo in one of my short stories. Maya Angelou once said, "You can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have." And I feel like that was exactly the case when it came down to this piece. Writing inspired art can only make magic, right? It all started with submitting a short story called Underground Problems to the Terminus 2 anthology back in January. Also, it was accepted, so I will be promoting it at the end of this video, just so you know. The only issue was the lack of descriptors of the characters, and I had to correct that before the final edits. The love interest, Akar, was pretty easy to update. I had an exact idea for both of the characters actually, but when it came down to Zarya, I felt that I wouldn't be able to describe her skin without playing into microaggressions or stereotypes. The first place I started my research at was writing with color on Tumblr. Yes, I still drop into Tumblr to either break a little more of my faith in humanity or learn something. Anyway, since the team behind the treasure trove of knowledge did not have the skin condition, they gave a few suggestions and links to resources. A great note from them was that there was a difference between vitiligo being a piece of their life to it being their life. Don't hyper-focus, fetishize, or exotify their vitiligo either. Those suggestions were pretty standard for me because I know what it's like to read a story and see that the author has not done any research about people outside of their existence. But it did remind me that it is possible for me to make the same mistake. Unfortunately, some of the reference stories and sites were no longer active. Even after trying to do a bit of research, i.e. Googling, there wasn't much specific information I could find about writing characters with vitiligo. The general sense was to describe what you see and not to act as if it was a detriment. Then I remembered that along with taking college courses, I could use Galileo for research in the library. One academic journal titled Living with Vitiligo, Dealing with Difference stood out amongst the rest. In it, the researchers found that the participants of the study were concerned with the difference in appearance linked to the standards of beauty in Western society. I'm sure you understand what that means. When symptoms first appeared, they felt anxiety and uncertainty with the growing sense of difference and of being overwhelmed by social implications of the condition, that something was wrong with the skin they were in. But as time went on, most changed their feelings on the matter. Thompson states, the behavioral strategies of avoidance and concealment had several disadvantages, whereas cognitive strategies were less problematic but difficult to sustain consistently. Social support served to facilitate the development of coping methods associated with acceptance of difference. However, maintaining this acceptance was a struggle and the process is fragile. To me, that was an understandable outcome. I live in America, and being part of the minority is, let's say, an extraordinary experience with fellowship and dangerous encounters at every turn. So that was even more reason to make sure the description was just that, a description. Being careful not to objectify Zarya. I watched a few videos to see what people had to say about it also, such as the Vit Chick's My Vitiligo Story and Truly's interview of Bashir Aziz titled My Vitiligo is Disappearing, but I Don't Want It To. Both shared accounts about their childhood and how the world dealt with them. For the Vit Chick, her family tried many treatments, but at some point they had to stop, which led to a period of time where there weren't any pictures of her in family albums. For Bashir, his photos were of him with makeup and hair dye from a very early age. In the end, I landed on describing the skin Zarya is in with several parameters. Don't compare her skin to food, because no. Avoid excessive purple prose. I don't want to confuse anyone or over-explain. And then describe her skin tone the same way I describe the other characters. This is what I came up with. Zarya pushed up her sleeves, exposing her warm brown skin speckled with blooms of pink and white, and pulled out a piece of paper. I did my best to keep it simple. Although it might still be a little purple prosy, but I think it got my point across and did my best not to insult anyone, in which I know we can't not insult everyone because someone's going to find a problem with it, I'm sure. And I do apologize for creating any feelings of othering or anything like that. But just know that I tried my best to not do that. After all of that research, the project still spawned more creativity from me. I was in a constant state of wanting to create, as Maya Angelou said. For good measure, I'll add another quote from James Baldwin. All art is a kind of confession, more or less oblique. All artists, if they are to survive, are forced at last to tell the whole story, to vomit the anguish up. Now that's a little more visceral, which may be a little bit closer to what I was feeling at the time. One of my favorite things to do is create wooden paintings of people with galaxies in their hair. Usually I take them to conventions to sell in artist alleys along with my short story zines and comics. I focus on giving them a variety of skin tones. Reading about and describing vitiligo made me want to try my hand at bringing it to life on one of the girls. The idea was to use layers of resin to add stars to her skin, using slight shadows to make them pop. The process is pretty straightforward. I bribed Pops to show up at Home Depot with his truck to grab 2x4 boards. Honestly, I may not have to really bribe him per se, considering I can call to see when he will be at the store for that week. But I want to get several of them cut and keep the creativity flowing, so yes, I do bribe. Then I pour on their hair once they're cut, paint their skin and faces, and cover them in resin. Sometimes I will add glasses after the first layer of resin to add a little bit more flair, but for this one the focus was on using gradients to reduce pigmentation in order to show the skin condition. Now I'm not highly trained in painting. I haven't done a lot of painting courses or anything like that, but I do enjoy experimenting and playing around with new mediums. So there you have it. I do like to make sure I'm researching things before I just run with it in my work. I will say that isn't always how I went through writing and things like that, in which I have ideas about going over some of my older work for this channel just to show how much I've grown. But other than that, yes, I do like to do a lot of research now, and then also let that bleed into other forms of creativity, which usually includes painting, maybe even crocheting and things like that, as you saw in the previous video with my hat. So other than that, I don't want to keep on talking throughout this whole video while you're watching the process of creating this lovely galaxy girl. Maybe I'll do more of these in the future where I list out why I was inspired to do certain things, such as maybe even talking about how I added more piercings and stuff to the galaxy girls and guys in order to signify certain aspects that I learned about with writing up characters for my short stories. If you like this kind of thing, hey, please like, subscribe, tell me in the comments what you like, don't like, and stuff like that. And I will let you go ahead and watch the rest of this video and come back at the end. Okay, so there she is, all done and ready on display. You've already seen her in a previous video. If you watched my previous video, hopefully you did. Hope you liked. Hope you just subscribed. Please, yes, hope so. Anyway, quit my begging. If you would like to have a galaxy person done, please feel free to take a look at my Ko-fi shop. I do have it linked below. And if you would like to maybe read my short story that's in the Terminus 2 anthology, and the short story is called Underground Problems. It is set in Atlanta, like the rest of the stories that are in the anthology. Well, actually, not. Well, I mean, in and around Atlanta, pretty much. So, if you would like to see more of that anthology information, it is in the description below. So, here I am plugging like all the things. I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to talk about resources or anything like that in the comments, please do. I would love to see what other places we can go to in order to have a better understanding or describe skin tones, colors, different type of conditions, and all that good stuff in the comments below. I am always interested in learning new things, so feel free. Thank you again for watching, and I do hope you have a wonderful evening. Bye bye.